We're talking to Alain Sylvain. You're working on pop culture and where that is evolving. Tell us about it.
Yeah, it's the topic of my speech. It's not necessarily what I work on all the time, but it's about how culture and pop culture is evolving in a way that's making brands impotent. It's rendering brands as impotent.
Explain.
We used to live in a world where brands dominated pop culture and they dictated where it should go. And now, because of technology and many other things, brands don't have a natural right to own culture. And so there's a new sort of code for brands that need to engage in culture. And culture, of course, is an important thing to be critical about because all of the products we create, all of our interactions, they exist in that context. So it's important to remember the new imperative for brands, given how culture is evolving.
So how should brands go about with this?
Well, there are a few different things. I have a code. I don't remember it all off the top of my head now, but it's but things like acknowledging the ignored audiences. Before brands looked for a generic, the most people as possible. You want to be as ubiquitous as possible. But now it's really about niche audiences and the sort of cultures and codes that they have within that world. And if you, as brands, if you really understand niche audiences, you can actually do quite well. You can be far more successful in reaching 10,000 people, really target them properly versus 10 million people. So it's a new way to behave.
So it's more shooting with sharp shooting and get real engagement.
Yes.
Do you have an example of a brand that's doing very well?
Well, a good example in this way, and it's not exactly a niche brand, it's a little brand you may have heard of called Nike. But the fact that they sell shoes to anyone with feet, right? They sell shoes to everybody. But they did recently a very interesting partnership with Colin Kaepernick, the American football player, who's controversial and has been banned from the NFL. But they gave him a sponsorship in spite of him not playing on the field. And that alienated and angered many people. And some people would say half the population was angered by that. But what we found is that it actually garnered more love than it did hate. And more people followed and bought Nike products. And it's even informing their product development strategy. The things that Nike makes is no longer shoes. It's also about beliefs and ideals.
So what you see here, I think you see that more often, is when you get a little bit of hate, you get a lot of love as well.
Yeah, for sure. And it's part of this polarized world we live in today. You're experiencing here, even here in the Netherlands, you experienced last election. It's something that's happening around the world. It's technologies bringing us further apart, further and further apart.
So where's the further future going? What's your dream?
My dream. That's a big question. As it relates to work, I imagine. As it relates to work, my dream is really to live in a place where we're not so dependent on corporations, and corporations don't wield as much power as they do right now. Not only in our consumer choices, but really in our political life and every other aspect. The future for me would be one that's truly equitable, which means people have as much power and right as companies do or more.
So where do people don't have enough power at the moment?
Everywhere. No, really, it's power is owned by government. It is owned by corporations for the most part. But in our choices and what we buy and what we wear, we're relegated to certain choices. The places we work, the places we send our kids to school, everything is dictated by corporate interests. It doesn't have to be that way. And I do think we're on this long road to something that is more empowering for citizens. It's a long road.
We're on the right path, but it's a long road.
What'd you say?
We're on the right path, but it's a long road.
I think so. It's one of these things where you take two steps back. I'm sorry, 2 steps forward, 1 step back. Yeah. So we're might be in a step back right now, but
it's a bright future.
It's a bright future. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Yeah.